Sweet. And we are live. Thank you so much, everyone, for coming in to check out this live conversation between myself and Jill, where we're going to be talking into the importance of natural movement and play for child development and learning. Really excited to bring this. It's going to be a lot of fun.
Yeah, I can't wait. And ever since we just started talking about this, I guess, for me, I've just started observing the boys even more in their movement and my own as well, because it's just bringing that awareness.
Yeah.
Once you start thinking about something or you've kind of had your focus put on it, you start seeing it everywhere, right?
Definitely.
So that's, I guess, what we're hoping to bring today to you guys as well. So just to bring that awareness. Yeah.
And it's funny, like anytime we have the conversations, we go down these rabbit holes, just exploring lots of different aspects of it. So it's going to be cool to actually have one of them recorded to be able to share some of that, because there's just been so many different nuggets, and like you're really good at pulling out things from my observation around movement that is just natural to me. It's just naturally how I look from where I am and my experience and stuff like that. So it's cool to actually be asked questions that just I never really think of for myself. I just actually see it as that's what I see. So it's going to be cool sharing all of that.
Yeah, and it's the same, I guess, for me in everything that I think about and know about natural learning and education. It's funny that I haven't drawn that connection to the fact that movement happens in the same way.
Yeah.
So some of the things that Finn has talked about, I thought, I know that from a different perspective, but I apply that knowledge to my comfort zone, to the work I do. So yeah, there's so many parallels, and drawing those connections, I think, is where all the kind of good stuff is.
Yeah.
So yeah.
Awesome. So to get started, best place would probably be to have a little bit of an introduction for each of us. So if you want to go first, share a bit about your story and.
Keeping it brief. I guess worked in education for a long time. That's something learning, I guess, more than education, and something that's always just inspired me and something I've been interested in, the process of learning. But, even as a kid, I was always somebody who I liked to go to libraries and I liked to go to universities and just anything that had that. It was about learning and books. It's kind of always been my thing. And assuming then, therefore, that, I clearly want to become a teacher.
Yeah.
So taking it in that direction and assuming that, and then just not finding that I was fitting in that system. So I guess, just looking at things and questioning things and just looking at, I guess, the natural wisdom in the child. That was something that started to just make me think, maybe these school systems don't work in the way we think they do or they should. And so that's just taken me down a rabbit hole, many. And now just kind of working on collaborating with other people and doing what we can to change up education and learning.
Yeah.
So do a few classes and work with some homeschool mums and just seeing where that takes me at the moment.
Awesome. So good. And then for myself, I started off studying sports and exercise rehabilitation. I always thought I wanted to work with in sports. Loved doing that. When I first graduated, working with a lot of football teams and different athletes and stuff back home in Ireland. And when we came to Australia, one of the main reasons to come to Australia was to get into strength and conditioning. Because I thought that's what I wanted to do, because that was cool.
Yeah.
When you're 20 something, and so I came over and actually started working as an intern in the City Swan strength conditioning. But while I was doing that unpaid internship, I just got work as a PT in a holistic studio in the northern suburbs in Sydney. And just that cracked me right open. Started working with a couple of coaches who were Czech practitioners and Charles Poliquin, and just very much around that holistic health element of it and looking at the big picture of holistic health. And as soon as I started getting my eyes open to that, I was always aware of it. I was just strength conditioning, all of that stuff just gone. It packed in the internship after about a month, after spending 6 months literally messaging every single strength conditioning coach in Australia. And I got one that I wanted. I just said thanks, but no thanks. And I just started going down more of the holistic health route. And that was 9 years ago. And just since then, it's been an absolute amazing journey for myself. because so much of what I do is learning how I can improve myself, and then that's where I'm able to teach from. Whereas I feel I can't teach something that I don't embody myself. So as I've been on this massive journey for myself, then that's being able to evolve into how I work with people through moving a lifestyle coaching and just helping create like the life that they want to live, be it through the way to move the bodies, the way to look at their self-inquiry and all of the whole picture of things. And then since having 2 little girls, that's opened me so much more up into this whole realm, and like watching the girls as they were going through the developmental stages. Like I absolutely love observing movement, but being able to see all the stuff I had read in books and I had to understand and see that actually start playing out through then, it just blew my absolute mind. And that just has really sparked such an interest in like how we can create a space to allow that to happen more naturally, compared to like, again, like when I'm at parks, when I'm always observing people, I'm always observing movements, and you can see where the effects of not having that freedom as a kid has such an impact on their bodies as they start getting a bit older. And then, like when we sparked up a conversation between all of this stuff, it was just like, we need to delve into this more.
I think it was that's like a mind-blowing thing for me, because as well, observing my children in particular, but also the children I work with, and just seeing that in early childhood, you get to watch that progression, don't you? That natural progression of it's learning, growth, everything together, physical development, but you would never dream of teaching a child to crawl. You know, you wouldn't decide, oh, let's do some formal lessons in crawling, you know. And that to me was really significant, I guess, having another son a few years ago. He's 3 now, just watching that progress. And I was looking at it through the eyes of an educator and learning. So I was seeing that as more of that mind-blowing thing of, wow, why do we suddenly decide to stop trusting that natural process of learning? Like, why am I okay with watching my child learn to squat and crawl and walk and talk and all of these things in a very natural process, and then suddenly at 5 go, oh, actually not okay with trusting that natural process anymore. It obviously needs to be formalized. And the fact that you're watching those same things, but from a completely different perspective, I find really interesting and fascinating. And it just brought that awareness to me as well, that I'm always looking at these things through the mind, because that's my comfort zone. I don't know, like it's where my focus is. So the fact that your focus is the body, that was just kind of like, it was like, oh, there's something really in this, in drawing these things together instead of seeing them as so separate. And that has huge implications for school systems and learnings and our lifestyle, instead of sitting down all day in the office and then doing an hour at the gym. It's like, well, how can we actually be more fluid and connecting these things instead of separation?
And like, and that's a big thing. Like, I think for myself, like whenever I was like in my mid-20s, like I did not look after my body. Like I was constantly moving, constantly training, but I wasn't looking after my body from more of a mindful, like longevity aspect of it. And it's like whenever we first went traveling, like I still remember like being like blown away when we were traveling through Thailand and seeing like all of the old guys sitting in the bottom of the squat waiting for a bus, like, and eating the food and all of this stuff. And like it really used to frustrate me, because like literally mine was, I'd say that was the extent of what I could get down to a squat, like because of like I'd be in that position where like my back would be sore, my ankle like was busted from like numerous injuries and stuff, and I was like, I just can't squat. It's like I'm not meant to be able to squat. It's like Asian people just more open to squat, but like, and I was just stuck in that mindset. I was like, oh, my body's just not designed to be able to squat. But as I started delving more into like looking after my body, nourishing body, and then like started looking into this big picture thing, it's like I started, and I needed to shift that mindset, because I could squat perfectly at some stage, but whatever has happened over my lifetimes, that has been taken away. And like when we look at that, like in the big remembrance of this came in with the birth of Bonnie, and seeing Bonnie being able to crawl around and seeing the developmental stages of when they're starting to lift their head up, they're using their eyes to start, like they can't move until their eyes start directing where they're moving, and they're going through all of these different rolling patterns, then into the crawling patterns, and then from that crawling pattern to that rocking back and forth, and being able to develop and through each of these milestones that they hit through movement. And then you see them sitting in the bottom of the squat and you're like, that is the most beautiful squat I've ever seen. Like it just had this click. It's like, I could do this. But something has happened in my lifetime that has taken that away. And when you think of it, it's like not nourishing my body with the right movement, sitting in chairs too much, sitting down in poor postures too much. And all of them things have just taken that natural development away from me. So that became my mission. So it's like, what do I do to start getting that movement back?
Yeah. And that's, I think, thinking about it from that perspective as well. And the fact if we're starting to see and acknowledge the fact that learning and child development, you know, you could even consider those the same things, that it's about a mind-body connection as well. So the fact that a child like Bonnie is still following that kind of process, but then what happens to that, like what happened to you, and when did you forget to squat, or you couldn't do it anymore? It's like, well, once you stop moving in that way and a child enters an environment that is, you know, requires stillness and quiet and huge chunks of time sitting like at a table and a desk like that, it has ironically huge implications for their mind and well-being as well. But the fact that I think at some point we decided that the learning of the mind or the academic processes were more important maybe than the physical ones. And I think that's what's interesting, is that we're starting to bring all of that back together again, hopefully.
And I think that's the thing with it, is it comes back to that whole paradigm of, like, when kids go to school, it's like, all right, we need to sit down, we need to focus and concentrate when you're sitting down. If you're moving about and stuff like that, you're not concentrating on what you're meant to be learning at hand. And like, you know, firsthand from kids, it's like they can just sponge like all the information in that they need from a really short period of time, and then go off and learn and play and do it and implement and integrate all of that into the being. Whereas with the more of a traditional school system, is you need to sit down for X amount of hours, go through all of this stuff. And like kids are fidgety and they're moving around, and like they're told to stop moving and constantly told to stop moving. And then they come home, and like I know for myself when I was growing up, is you come home and TV goes on straight away. So you sit down watching TV.
Excuse me, Finn.
Yep.
Sorry. I was fascinated by that discussion, particularly, I'm a teacher in an education system. And what you're talking about is starting to happen less at my secondary level, as I start to throw some of what you're talking about into secondary schools and changing the way that we think of education and how it's delivered at present. So it's very fascinating for me now to come back to face-to-face teaching after being online so long. And incorporating some of that and collaborating with Circus Oz and some movement stuff that you introduced me to, old Finn. As I came to you to mend my poor old broken body. So no, it's fascinating, and I'm really happy that there's something going on at the early education end, because by the time they get to me, it's a little bit late sometimes, and they run out of, why would I want to do that? And the body just kicks in.
Yeah, it's awesome you're bringing that in. Like, and as I said, like you came to mind whenever we first started talking about this, because I remember how passionate you were about, like, as you started to learn how to nourish your body, then you're like, we need to bring this into the schools to start changing. And it's wicked to see that you're doing that. Like, it's so awesome. Like, and I think that's what the whole idea of this conversation is about, just to get people to see is like, we can make these changes, but a lot of the changes comes from what we can do as adults ourselves to start nourishing our bodies, become more aware of our bodies, so then we can filter that down to the kids that are in our care or else in our family unit and stuff like that as well.
Yeah,
absolutely.
I think that's like an interesting point, I guess, for me as well, since talking to Finn, is thinking about, I guess, the difference between natural movement and just movement. Because I would have said, oh, my kids look, I have 3 sons, they move a lot, you know, they do a lot of sport. And they've been at school until pretty recently. But I started to I think just from talking to Finn, and my husband's been doing some work with Finn, and that's brought my awareness to the fact that there's a difference as well between natural movement and physical education, or just movement in general, like sport. I think a lot of parents think, oh, we know we need to get our kids moving, and teachers, we know we need to get them moving, but there's a disconnection between what does natural movement look like and this other sort of idea we have of movement. I know a lot of teachers like maybe will choose to, the kids, they can feel there's a bit of a wildness and the kids need to move, so they'll send them out for a run, and then get them back in sitting at desks. So I think, if maybe you could talk a little bit on what we mean, the difference between a natural movement.
I can think with
sometimes the run actually elevates them even more. And it's a common misconception that just that running is going to burn off all of that energy.
You're right.
Some of those little moves that you taught me, Finn, just seem to help the kids centre, because mine is all about brain regulation. Because I work with some kids that have some very tricky amygdalas. Very tricky amygdalas, and movement helps them to be able to self-regulate.
And I think that's why they need to learn that themselves, like you have for the teachers, because otherwise we do those things. We'll go for a run and then come back, 2 laps around the oval, come back and get your brain switched on.
But even when you look at, before even getting into the natural movement element of it, it's like if you're looking at like the brain working with the nervous system, it's like going out for a run is going to be upregulating the nervous system, which is going to bring up more of that, because you're getting a big release of endorphins, you're getting a big release of like everything. Your nervous system becomes more heightened coming back from that. So then you're like, oh yeah, that was awesome. Because you don't just run going through, like if there's a couple of kids running around, they're playing, running around and then coming back. Whereas by doing more gentle movements where like they're learning how to play, but like from a more of a gentle calmer one, that's going to be more of a down regulating system. Where if it's like playing around with some games where they're crawling around, going back to the natural child development of rolling, crawling, squatting, all of them different movements where they're opening up the body and getting the body opening in more of a relaxed way, rather than like boom, 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 go for a sprint, go for a run, go for that. Like I think that's a big one with that as well. But then when we go deeper into like what sort of movements and the difference between natural movement and going for a run, it's like you look at the basic movement patterns as like, can your kid sit in the bottom of the squat with their heels in the ground, with their chest upright, nice and tall? Like, is that a natural resting position for them, or are they really struggling with that movement? It's like, can they hang from a bar and feel confident hanging from a bar? Because again, that is something that is natural. Like I know Bree is 16 months and she can hang for a couple of seconds off a bar, because like she's constantly seeing us doing it, so she constantly wants to learn to do it. Like some of the stuff that Bonnie can do at 4.5 now, it just blows my mind. Because like and now the different movements want to come through. Whereas like I know we talked about this. If you look at like your boys, it's like Sonny squat is absolutely amazing. As soon as you start walking up through the different ages, you can see how that movement of a squat, which is so natural, how that differs in the boys coming up through, even up toward Lockie. Like your husband, and like he's at that age where he's learning how to get back into that squat pattern. The boys are learning how to open all of that stuff up more, and then how that has an effect and how they move everywhere.
It's impacted them quite quickly, I guess, when you look at their lifespan as well. Like they're 10 and 12. My 3-year-old, since talking to Finn, we've all been noticing his squatting. It's kind of like the boys go, look at Sonny's squat, and it's like we wouldn't have maybe acknowledged it like before, but it's inspired the older boys to get back to doing that. But they're only 10 and 12, so the fact that they can't, and I would have described them both as pretty sporty, active kids, especially my middle son. Like he's put him on a football field, cricket, picks it up really quickly. But one thing I noticed, and I think this is thinking of how still he's had to have his body while he's been in school, because if you think that's a good chunk of time throughout the day, he used to complain about like, oh, my hip hurts, my ankle hurts, all of these, my neck hurts. And to be honest, I did think he was being like, it was just something that he did and he spoke about. But I took him to a chiro, and she said, oh, well, he doesn't activate his glute, and he couldn't sit cross-legged or squat for a while. And he was only 9 at the time. And I thought, wow, it's actually, so we forget quite quickly. Like it doesn't take long to forget the movement.
Yeah.
And that's just not using it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
If you don't use it, you lose it. It's that always saying, like, but as we start to open up the opportunities to move more and use them movements a lot more, they come back a lot quicker. Whereas you look at the boys, their movements probably coming back a hell of a lot quicker. Whereas you look at Lockie, he's taken a lot more work and a lot more effort to get his body moving a lot more, because there's years and years and years of built up conditioning and tightness and restrictions and everything around that. It's still happening, but it's going to be a slower progress. Whereas the younger we are, as we can start developing more of that natural movement and invite more of that space into their day-to-day movements, that's going to start creating changes a lot quicker. Because same as with teaching, same with anything, it's like, as humans, like, our nervous system and our body intuitively know what is best for them when we are given the space to explore that. When we're not given the space to explore, we adapt to the situations that we're in. Like, you take making kids sit in chairs, you make them like have computers around, have TV on, have all of these things that hold them into this closed position. Like, they're going to adapt to that really quickly. Whereas if we create a space for them to open that up, if we create more space to have more time sitting on the floor while they're doing activities and stuff, their body's going to, you don't have to teach them. It's like, all right, sit on the floor. This is how we're going to be sitting on the floor. Like, you'll see they'll be in this position, they'll be in this position, they'll be constantly shifting that around because they're listening to their bodies with that. And by creating that space, that's where it's going to have such a roll-on effect with it.
And I think that's a big thing for teachers as well, because I know we're taught, and through our own schooling, the conditioning is that unless the room full of kids are sitting like this, looking at you the whole time, then they're not learning. But I think deeper than that is the teacher, adult's belief maybe that we don't have control of the situation. So that's I think there's so much power in that suggestion you've made, because if teachers could allow and trust a little bit in a little bit of that very, very simple free movements, like allowing the kids to move through different
teachers in my experience, and the ones I work with, tend to do that a lot.
Allow them to move.
So I'm sticking up for my colleagues here.
No, it's good.
No, because that's perhaps a little bit generalist, because that, in my teaching experience in schools, in secondary schools in Western Australia and now in Victoria, so I've got a bit of a broad view on that.
Well, that's good. So you find
that generally teachers are actually starting to do that a lot. Because they always trust their students. And that's the whole thing when you're creating the relationships. And you're talking about creating a safe space, Finn? That's for kids to do that. That's what teachers are currently trying to do. So I think you should really sort of acknowledge that there are moves within the system, because the system's...
There is. I agree.
The system is absolutely crap, let me tell you. And I totally get it. It's a whole 19th century system set up on the basis of that particular portion in time. We've just managed to carry it through. So I'm a big advocate of creating schools for the 21st century. Sorry, for the 22nd century. Schools for tomorrow that incorporate those sorts of things. And there are little pockets around the place that are starting to pick this up. I think that's important to acknowledge as well, because it's not all doom and gloom.
No, I agree that, like, teachers...
Anyway, sorry, I've got to run because I've got a whole lot of work to get done to plan for next week.
For your teaching. No, I fully acknowledge teachers, and I think that's why we kind of wanted this conversation for teachers and parents, so that teachers could feel empowered, like yourself, to make the changes in the system as well, and become advocates for that. Because I have seen been in schools where teachers want to do these things, but from up above, it's maybe like not given the okay, if that makes sense.
No, well, again, it all depends on how persuasive you are within your own work context as well, because you've got to actually take that into account and consideration, because most of the teaching workforce are older females who are mothers and grandmothers and who want to look out for their kids and want to make things safe.
Whereas the big thing with that is, like, it comes back to, this is something that can be new for adults to understand, because they don't do it within their bodies. It's like, looking from yourself, Jamie, is like, you got your eyes open when you started doing more of this stuff yourself, and that gave you the drive to start working through all of this stuff. So it's like, I think it's like, as a collective, the more we can communicate about this and the more we can like share more of this knowledge and experience with people, it's given them the opportunities to speak up, to create more and more of that change. So like, it's amazing to hear that it is changing.
Yeah.
Like, it's so amazing to hear, and like, it's so empowering to hear it's changing.
It's slow, but it, you know.
Yeah.
Like, and having conversations like this and opening up people's awareness to more of these things, that's just going to create more momentum to create more.
And I think that's the whole thing. It's awareness. Anyway, listen, I've really got to run. I've got a week's worth of planning to do.
Awesome, thank you.
See you later. Take care. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Yeah.
But like, even like, as you were saying, like, kind of like, that was one of the things that kind of, like, when you were explaining some of the experiences that you've had where like some kids that you knew like were told like, right, you can sit on the floor, but you're sitting in this one position, and like, you know, that like they get like fidgety when they're in that position, and then like they get like, there's lots of they kind of reprimanded because they're getting fidgety in them positions, and like, you were just kind of conceptualizing like, how do I understand this? You were trying to figure that out. If you want to talk into that.
Yeah, I guess most of that observation comes through the boys. So especially my second one. So he was having all of these sort of complaints and pains and things like that. And then we did find out that because he's moved, you know, that he's not doing certain things with his body, he's not able to like squat anymore. And so one interesting thing that I observed in him is that when he stopped going to school, and I was telling Finn about this, and I just watched him, and, you know, I was a bit like, oh, we have no idea what we're doing, but we're going to de-school, which means just being open to anything right now and going through the motions. So I just saw, what is he going to do now he has this freedom? And he pretty much spent 3 or 4 weeks being a tiger. So crawling, jumping, even like wanting water in a little bowl on the floor so he could drink out of that. And it was fascinating because at first I thought, wow, the beauty of it is that the play aspect allows for so much of that natural movement. But he just was like climbing walls and scaling walls, and I started to wonder, wow, is this the like this innate thing inside humans to kind of heal? I don't know, like I don't really have anything to found that on other than what I was seeing, but it was fascinating to know that his body had been quite out of alignment. And so when given the freedom of choice, well, I'm going to move like a tiger for 3 weeks.
It's such a primal instinct of just getting back and just doing what his body needed. But then so much of that comes back is like allowing that space for that to happen. Whereas it could have been easy, like, oh, come on, get up off the floor and let's do this. But like, just allowing that space to happen and just allowing that to kind of roll with it is like, it's so amazing, so beautiful. But like, even like kind of going with someone that like if he was sitting before and he has complaining of pain in his back, pain in his hips, all of that stuff, and like he's in that more of a learning environment where he's trying to concentrate on the learning and stuff, there's a guarantee like he wasn't getting near as much out of that learning experience because he wasn't able to actually concentrate on what was being said, because he was fidgeting in his body because he was trying to get comfortable. It's like, hands down, it's like, we all know as adults what it's like to have like a pain or a discomfort, and you're sitting there and you're constantly like, oh, is this comfortable? It's like, no, it's still an ache. You're constantly trying to shift around. We just hold that pain rather than allowing ourselves to actually move through and get comfortable in that position, inviting that movement to come through. But by, again, it's going back to like, by removing them shackles and allowing that safe space for them to move and explore with that, it's like, they can move around and get comfortable. It's like, all right, I feel comfortable here, so now I can actually take in what is in that learning experience. I'm starting to get a bit uncomfortable. It's like, all right, I'm going to come through here. I'm going to start, maybe I have to crawl around for a little bit, maybe go through all of these different movements and stuff. Like, and there, again, it's like all about creating that safe space that they feel comfortable to explore their bodies, and they're encouraged to explore their bodies to allow that to happen.
And I think maybe for parents as well, if you are homeschooling or even if you're not, just maybe acknowledging that movement or the play or all these things that children seem innately drawn to do is actually laying foundations to later do the academic learning. So, you know, we often think of writing as a very like academic or mental process, but it's highly physical. And so unless you can hold your pencil in a certain way, which requires fine motor skills, which, you know, needs you need to be connected with your body to hold a pencil and
Yeah.
and write. And so if a child is doing certain play things like digging and things like that, they're actually laying the foundations to become writers.
Yeah.
So that's what's not, you know, it's interesting to me, because I know a lot of early childhood teachers are seeing that children are coming through now with fine motor skills that just aren't where they were like 10, 20. If you talk to a teacher who's been teaching a long time, they'll say that's significantly getting, like, the skills are like getting worse as each age group comes through. And so it's just ironic. But then speaking to some of the parents that I've worked with, hearing stories about children who maybe don't have great fine motor skills, and then the child's given freedom to choose what they do, and he's digging for hours and hours and hours and hours. It's hard for us as adults or parents to say, to be okay. You know, you can kind of feel uncomfortable with that, but he's not doing anything and he's not doing his academic work. And it's like we have to shift to seeing that as equally important, but also the fact that the mind and the body operates together rather than the separation.
Yeah, it's so interesting just listening to that, like, because it's one of the things that I notice so much when working with adults in that concept of like movement and stuff. Because as adults, some of the stuff they do is bring back in crawling patterns and teach them how to actually start going through crawling patterns. Like, one for the movement wise and the strength wise, but also for the coordination. And like there's so many elements to that is just so common through where people struggle with. And like one of the main ones is people's wrists can't withstand actually being on their hands and knees. Like getting into that hands and knees position, being here and then being able to like crawl around. There's so many people, as soon as they start doing that, like they're complaining of sore wrists. Like I'm sure you've seen it in like your yoga practice, how many people that practice yoga have really weak wrists because we don't use them, we don't weight bear, we don't load through them in that way. Like we spend so much time on keyboards, on phones, doing all of these things, but we don't actually have that fine motor control to like strengthen up all of these areas with that. And like when we start looking at the movement wise and the body wise, like if you've got like really stiff, weak wrists, then that's going to have compensations coming up through your shoulder, and like going to have lots of neck issues, not like lots of back issues and stuff through your neck and shoulder with that as well. So again, by allowing more of that movement, by allowing them to like have that free play, that's going to help strengthen up that connection again in and itself, which you see, it's so much of just that constant cycle. One thing feeds the other, which brings that cycle coming through. But if you take one thing away, that just puts it in a negative loop. That feeds that negative loop with it.
So then there's huge implications for the environment, right? Like teaching environments, but also home environments. I know that's something that we've changed since Locke's been working with Ben. So Locke couldn't sit cross-legged when he first came to work with you, and you know, my 88-year-old grandma could still sit cross-legged, but that's because of the way she's lived her life. And it's been amazing though to just think. I think I originally contacted Finn to work with the boys. Like when we were first having these things with my middle son about, he's not activating his glute and he's doing all of these things. So my immediate brain was, okay, well, he must need a lesson in movement from somebody. And it's interesting that I don't apply my knowledge about natural learning to movement. Like that's still making me go, wow. Because I'd even say to people who want to teach their children yoga, it's like, well, do you do yoga? You know, so, but I still applied that same thing to like going, well, Finn, can you work with the boys? And then I can't even remember what happened, but you eventually ended up working with Locke, and that's made more of an impact. So you talk to him about, you call it floor living? Floor living. So our table is now our dining table for dinner. He's like changed the legs around, so we sit cross-legged for dinner. Which the boys were super excited with. But it's been interesting actually to see even the 10 and 12-year-old, like they're not comfortable doing that. Like it's, so we kind of have to use the little blocks and bolsters and stuff.
And that's the thing, like it's with anything like this, it's like when we are going from one thing to the other, like there's that period of transition from it. You don't just go from like sitting at a chair, wearing shoes, doing all of this stuff to like running around barefoot, sitting on the floor the whole time, because your body again has adapted to this one extreme with it, and then you're starting to bring it to this other extreme. There's going to be that time where we need to start allowing that to start happening, and there's going to be that relearning of what the body wants to do with it. Like, and for myself, going back to like my journey with like trying to learn how to squat properly again, like I remember like I was doing so much stuff in the gym where it was like focused mobility stuff, doing all of this stuff to release out of it, like, and trying to go through like using my logical brain from like the physio background to like get my body to move a lot better, and progress was really, really slow. But it wasn't until I was like, right, how can I just get more movement into everything that I do? So that's when I started looking at my environment and looking at activities that I do continuously throughout the day, and where I can change the setup for that to invite more movement into the day. So like by taking away our chairs and spending more time sitting on the floor, that means no matter what I'm doing, I'm in position to open it out. Like you guys have seen, like so far in this video, like I don't know how long we going. I probably haven't sat still for more than like 2 minutes, because again, it's just constantly shifting through, and like that's the stuff that opens up through your hips and stuff. And like I still remember, it's like I started like eating my lunch in a squat position, but like that used to be really uncomfortable. So I used to eat on a height where like my heels were up at this wedge. And like slowly as I got more comfortable, I was able to get flatter and flatter and flatter with that. And I still remember the first day I was able to sit in the bottom of a flat squat, eating my lunch. I could literally like jumped up out of it, rang Shona in excitement like this. You'd never guess what happened. And like I explained to her what happened, and she was like, "You're fucking weird." But by doing that sort of stuff, and then by going to that way of like cutting the legs off our dining room table, so like our table is down nice and low with that. Like that again was more time and created more space for us to learn how to adapt to live in this way, which nourishes our body so much more. And then seeing with the girls, like they don't know anything different from this, normal. But it's so amazing to be on that same level with them while having that, and seeing how they move, like continuously just blown away like with what the girls can do, especially Brie even more so, because we've been doing this more and more so with Brie, whereas Bonnie was just at that early phases. Like she's still amazing mover, but Brie, 16-month-old, like scaling up rocks, like everything is just ridiculous because her body's so used to and adapting to that. But then for myself, it's like my body just opened up completely when I started doing that. Like for where you are within your journey with that, you have taken that away. So it's going to be time to start learning and opening that up. But like it's going to be happening, like you need blocks, you need cushions, you need different things to make it more comfortable. But then it'll be slowly being taken away till it gets more comfortable, because it's that progression of the body relearning what it naturally does.
And ironically, you know, for my toddler as well, he's more likely to sit and actually eat with us now. So like, you know, I think of how long I've spent in my life trying to make young children I'm talking about my own children, sit at the table and eat dinner, you know, like, and then it's them, I think he's probably not been comfortable sitting on a chair. Like it would be completely odd for him, but now he'll come and sit and eat. So that's interesting. So I guess for any parents and educators, it's just taking that aspect of floor. So if the kids get down to the floor, like it's furniture that kind of like is going to be impacting.
But like it's the whole setup is like if there is chairs there and a table there, it's a lot harder to bring more time on the floor. Whereas if you're able to take the chairs away and have it all around the table, it's like when you're eating, that's just what you do. Like for our house, like we have a sofa. We spend some time on the sofa. We spend more time sitting on the floor. The sofa is more like a trampoline for the girls to climb over and jump over and all of that sort of stuff. But by having that, like we were mindful of just let's have as much floor space as possible to like whatever happens as possible. Like we're just looking at ways where you can set your environment up to make it inviting, so you don't have to move this table away to create this space. And it's like, like I'm taking this stuff away to create this space because that's putting natural blockages in it from happening naturally. Whereas if it's there and like you don't have to orchestrate, you're not like, all right, now we're going to be sitting down on the floor. You're like, you just have stuff around. We just have cushions and stuff like that around, and the girls pull them around the place and sit on them and do different things with it.
So it's natural. I think that's key as well. Like, you know, we've kind of got this thing now to like always look outwards to fix things and everything, where there's like simple changes that can bring about actually more profound change.
And like it's even other things with that. It's not just the elements of floor sitting. It's like the main things that I've focused on, like when we moved into this house, was like, right, what else is there to invite movement into our day-to-day stuff for the girls and for me, because I know I need it as much as they do. I probably need it more than they do. So like out the back of the house, like I've got like a little trapeze, it's just a wooden bar down it. Bonnie's height that she can hang from. I've got a set of gymnastic rings hanging down that she can hang from. But then I've got one for myself that I can hang from as well. Then like out on the garden, like I put down, I just got like loads of little stones, like little square stones, and like laid them out in a pattern sort of stepping stones so you can jump across. I got a couple of wooden beams, so like the wooden beams are across, so like they can just crawl across them. Like got a few things they can climb on and stuff like that. But like the interesting thing with so much of that stuff is the girls don't use that stuff as much when Shona's around, but when I'm around they use it so much more. And like it's one of the things we were talking about this is because I use it. If I'm out there hanging out with the girls, I'm straight up into jumping on the rings. I'm straight up to playing around a few things. And as soon as I do some of that while they're playing, like we're playing games, then Bonnie just like boom, she just takes over, goes into the circus mode and starts playing for like half an hour doing that.
Yeah.
Whereas with Shona, she wouldn't naturally be drawn to jump up to the rings or do any of them stuff. So the kids aren't naturally drawn to do that. They do more crafts and more stuff where they're down, but it's still on the floor using the fine motor skills with that. So like with that sort of stuff, that's where again you're creating your space, creating that environment to invite it in. But by as well, they learn by example. They see you doing it, so they're going to do it. Whereas if I told Bonnie, it's like, "Oh, do you want to go in the rings and do this and this?" She wouldn't do it. She'd go off and do the complete opposite. Whereas if I start playing on the rings, doing a few things, she's straight over and doing it with me, and then she creates a show that we do and spend half an hour playing on that sort of stuff.
Yeah. And I think that's it. That's, you know, it's the same sort of philosophy, I guess, you would apply to natural learning as well. Like rather than kind of scheduling to study or do a lesson plan, it's kind of just providing certain tools and inspirations, or it's just the environment, and the kids will very quickly find what they need out of that environment. And I think that's some of the interesting implications between both natural movement and natural learning is it's not only it's healthy for your mental and physical and emotional state, it's also teaching children, or not even teaching them, allowing them to nourish that connection to their intuition, to knowing themselves, and also to be even in charge of their body. Because a lot of the time that is taken away from them. And I think I spoke to you before, like my eldest son, I've noticed he is a bit more likely to sit and read and write, like that sort of comes, he's more drawn to that, but he will still start to say things like, yeah, now my legs are getting twitchy now. Like, and interestingly, just allowing him to listen to that is all that's needed. Because I said, oh, so what do you want to do? He knows what he needs to do. I don't have to set up like, you know, an obstacle course for him or anything. But interestingly, I said, so what would happen in the classroom would you, if you felt like that? Because I noticed it's like about a 15-20 minute window that he just has twitchy legs. And I know most of their classrooms at his age, he's in high school, would be like at least 50-60 minute blocks. And he said if that happened in the classroom, I would just have to sit, make my body be still until, and the next chance to move is maybe only move into the next class. It's like a walk into the next class. So yeah, like, do you think, is that like, is it 15? I guess there's not like going to be an actual number of how often they need to move. It's just simply them trusting that desire.
One of the things that like I even do for myself and like with my clients when I'm working with them is like I utilize the Pomodoro Technique a lot when I'm working, like doing a lot of my computer work and admin work. And like the Pomodoro Technique is like, it's basically like research and concentration in adults and like how to enhance your productivity and stuff. And it actually is, like they've like researched a lot of it and says like 25-minute blocks is the most where your concentration is going to be high, and then after 25 minutes that's when it starts lapsing off. So with it is actually created like this sequence of like working in 25-minute blocks and then having a 5-minute break, 25-minute block, have a 5-minute break, and doing 4 cycles of that, and then at the end of the 4 cycles you have a half an hour break. So like overall, like for if I'm not my computer work and stuff like that, it's like a 2.5-hour window where I work through that, but in that 2.5-hour window, I have designated 5-minute breaks throughout and then half an hour break. And like I know when I follow that, I get so much more done because I'm working naturally within my body and allowing that time and space to concentrate and then nourish my body, concentrate and nourish my body. Whereas some days, like I wouldn't do that, and like I'd be like, right, got to be concentrating doing this, and I keep going on because you feel like you're on a roll. But then after about 45 minutes to an hour, you're like, get real stodgy and heavy and real flat energy because I've missed that natural window. And then if you look with like in class and stuff like that, it's like it's for something like that, it's very outside of my knowing and understanding, because it's been a long time since I've been in classroom. So
Yeah.
like, I just think like for something like that, I would just be looking as like, right, what can you do to invite someone in?
Yeah.
So it's the matter of like, is it the matter of, again, as Jamie was saying, is like creating that safe space where there's that trust.
Yeah.
So like,
Yeah.
a kid is allowed to do something, like if they feel that coming through, then you can have something to like break up the middle of that class, plan in that class session to have 5 minutes of just exploration and play, just put on a song and just allow them to do whatever. But then knowing at the end of that song they come back, and then that's when they can go for the second half of the class. Like that, like logically something like that would be what I would be geared towards doing. But with that, it's like creating that space and environment and trust between like teacher students to allow something like that to happen.
It's very about trust, I think, and just sort of not assuming that the child's moving away from what they're doing, so therefore they're distracted or they've lost interest. I mean, I've noticed with my 12-year-old, he'll often come back to whatever it was he was doing. So it's not like he just leaves it, but he recognizes now these movement needs in his body. So, and I think one other thing that you said to me when we talked last time that was really interesting to me is about screen use. Because the boys, you know, they do use screens, like it's a reality, it's part of our lives. But some of those, you had little tips about even thinking of the posture in the screen when kids are on like laptops or phones or whatever that is they're using.
And again, like so much of that again comes down to the environment that we create around it, because I think this was actually what initiated this whole conversation to kick off. Because like, I think it's like I put up a post and I said something about it, as like, oh, Bonnie, I can see Bonnie's posture go if she's con, and you were like, what?
Yeah.
And like, but it's like if you think of a screen, and if you think it's like, as humans, like our body adapts to the surroundings and to the environment really quick. So if you're sitting there with a phone or an iPad or something in front of you, like you're not going to be sitting up tall like this, nice and strong for like half an hour watching whatever. Like pretty soon, if your shoulders are going to drop, your pelvis is going to rock back. You're going to be that forward head posture. You're just going to be sitting like working on that. So like that's something that's naturally just going to fall into that position. And guaranteed, we all ourselves. Most of these listening to this, if you're just sitting down, you're probably sitting in a posture similar to this. You look at your kids, if they're watching on the screens, they think they fall into these postures more, because that's just creating this one-dimensional space for them to sit in. Whereas if you can look at how to invite more movements and different things in, and again, it's like sparking that awareness for them to be in control of their bodies. And that happens by seeing the parent do it. If you're sitting watching a movie together and the parent's sitting on the sofa watching the movie and they don't get up and move, the kid's not going to get up and move. Or if the kid gets up to move, the parent's like, oh no, come on, let's concentrate on this. Whereas like if you're down on the floor and constantly shifting, like as what we said, like constantly shifting through these patterns when we're coming down through there, like doing stuff that, like if you're doing some screen time, it's like, right, let's go and like have something where we're going to be hanging from stuff, would be a really good one to sort of countering that flexion through your shoulders, that forward head posture. If you can go and hang off stuff, is good one to open out and extend through that. Like getting onto your chest, like show you this trick here. Getting onto like a position, like you see so many kids naturally get into that sort of position. And like it's such an amazing position because they're able to like get that extension through the chest. They're getting so much better alignment through here. Like that's going to be so much of a better posture than sitting down hunched over with that. But again, it just comes back to kids. They act on what they see, not what they're told. So as parents, as teachers, as anyone that influences kids and stuff like that, it's like what you're like being more aware of what you do naturally in yourself. That is going to speak so much more to the kids than what you say to the kids. I can totally vouch for that, and like parenting experiencing and teaching experience as well. And I know that Locke, like now he will often, if we are watching a movie, he sits on the floor now, you know, and the boys will sort of move around him and they'll emulate what they see as well. And I think that's something when we think about play as well and providing that time and space for children to play, which is what we saw through this COVID kind of situation, that children in their play as well, they mirror not just their families, but society and culture. So it can be, you know, a thing where if we've got quite a sedentary
culture, like lifestyle. So it's like, I guess that was part of our inspiration for this conversation was, well, the more people that are just aware of this and it can spread like a message, that helps all of our children as well, because it's awesome if we do it in our own homes and our own classrooms, but as that, you know, grows and then they're going to their friend's house and seeing the same thing there, because they're influenced, especially noticing my boys, the older they get, their influence widens as well, you know, which is fascinating to see.
And that's the thing, like it just takes to spark the changes, and the more we can start creating that response within ourselves, and that's where it bleeds through. Like, and again, this is something like I've been approached like so many times to work with kids, but I know for myself that's not my zone of genius. It's like I know for myself is like I can have a lot more of effect if I'm able to work with adults, which can create that change with the adults then, and then people who are, because I know some movement coaches and different ones who work with kids that are just like, I'm just like blown away in awe of how they can hold that space for kids. But I know for me, I connect easier to teach adults and kind of connect in that way and educate and empowering adults with that. And I know that's going to have more of a profound effect on me. But like, I think it is like, it's like for all of us, is like knowing like what we can do within our space, what we can do within ourselves. Like if you are like parents or teachers or anything like this, listening to this, and you're like, what can we do? Like the biggest thing that I can say is like check in with yourself. It's like, and ask is like, what am I doing to nourish my body? Like, how am I creating space for myself, and how am I leading by an example within myself, and thus in the environment that I'm creating for my kids. And like by working on that side of things, guaranteed that's where you're going to start seeing the changes come more so with the kids. Again, like it's one of the things we talked about. Rather than focusing on like finding another class that you can bring your kids to learn this sort of stuff, kids already know this. Yeah, they do. Like it is built in their nervous system to move in this way, but it can be conditioned out of us through society. So by creating that space for it to come back naturally, it's going to come back naturally. So we don't need to be looking at booking in another class, putting more stress on you as a parent to like get your kid to hear, putting more anxiety on the kids to be going from running from activity to activity. It's like one of the things that like through COVID that happened is like so many kids were out moving so much more because all of these other distractions were taken away, and that created that space for them to get bored as such. So it's like, right, let's go and move and play and explore and do all of that.
Boredom's so important. Like it's so important as a space to allow, and I think it's something that children aren't getting to experience, and COVID did show us just how resilient children are as well, because they seem to be thriving through that. The ones that I spoke to anyway, which is in a smaller kind of like space, were thriving through that time. And everything you just said I would apply to natural learning as well. So if you want your child to be an inspired reader or learner, you have to do that yourself. Like I find that quite easy. That comes naturally to me to find joy and curiosity, especially nature. So that's maybe when I'm in like my kind of like zone, and I know that's when I'm operating at my best, and I see that filtering to the boys. Like, and it's not like a structured lesson, and it feels like the most absolute right thing to do. So I think just modeling. And I did work with an awesome teacher who, she said her thing at the start of every year, she used to say, when she was thinking about her goals and what she wanted the kids to learn, she just used to think about what sort of society and world do I want to live in? That's the person I'm going to be in this classroom. I was like, she's a beautiful, beautiful teacher. And she did do that as well. And I think that's like an important message for us all to have as well. If you, instead of looking for like, we've talked about this, someone to create a natural movement program for the kids or create this or whatever, it's just being how you would, the sort of person you want the world to be. Like what sort of world do you want to live in, and be that. And, when we do drive around in our cars, ironically, we're making more stress and less movement, and that's how I hurt my back, which is so ironic that we're talking about this and I'm sitting here with a lower back pain. But that was putting Sunny in the car seat, so that was a really odd movement. And it's one of the driving the kids as well. Like we do so much to restrict them. So that fear of missing out, I think we have, like even worse than that is fear my child is missing out. So
And again, like, and I think that, like as you said, it just goes back to like, by having that time and space, it allows that curiosity to come out naturally in the kids. Like, and that's the beauty with it.
And that's allowing ourselves to be okay with that as well, because I think we've been conditioned to be busy. So anyway, I'm checking with the time. It's kind of perfect.
Yeah, awesome. So just going to open up, if anyone has any specific questions or would like anything answered, feel free to unmute yourself and ask away, or if you want to type in comments and stuff. I see there's a few ones.
There's one there, maybe you've already answered that. So someone, as a 3 and 4 year old kindy teacher, would you be able to give us more natural movement examples, please? I'm currently looking at redesigning our outdoor play area and would love to include areas where natural movement can be used.
Awesome.
So
so like I think like we've covered a lot of that sort of stuff with like through the conversation. We're getting specific with it. It's like there's so like, it's one of the things, the parks are getting so much more amazing now. There's so much more of that natural play is coming in, where like having things where you can balance on, having things where you can swing and hang from, like it's just creating that space for them to be able to explore all of that, having a lot more like natural materials where you're getting all of like the wooden parks coming in compared to all of the fake hard plastic things. I can see with the girls, like they play so much more naturally when it's more of a natural park. Whereas when it's all of the plastic ones, like you can see it's like there's just not the same feeling, the same connection to how they are in it, because it's more orchestrated with it. Whereas like having a more natural environment allows that to happen with it. But then for games and stuff like that to play, the stuff that I always come back to is like I just love like getting down and mimicking animals and playing games where you're just playing with different animals. And like I've done a couple of workshops and stuff like with families, and like because I do a lot of like primal movement and flow where you're crawling patterns and lots of different stuff like that, but I just open it out and get the kids to lead by examples. And it was like right, let's get down on our hands and knees, and it's like, how does a bear move? And it's like, get them to see how they move like a bear, or how do they move like, they can just start getting them to call out different animals and seeing what they want to start working with. It's like the same as like us crawling around like a tiger like he didn't have to learn how to crawl like a tiger. He was like, I'm crawling around and doing this.
Play that, and all 3 of my boys have spent periods of time pretending to be a certain animal, like, and that just seemed to be something they did. And I probably as well with the like outdoor play area, one thing that I think is really cool to like just think of as well is to, you might already be doing this, getting the kids involved in the outdoor play area as well, because and thinking of things that aren't necessarily fixed in the environment. So I know when we think of big playgrounds or outdoor areas, we might get some equipment put in that's quite fixed. Some of the best outdoor areas that I've worked with kids is when they, like say you just have logs that can be moved around, so that then they have to work together to like create a road or whatever it is that they're interested in, and then they spend the whole day digging and lifting, doing that heavy work, and there's teamwork. I've seen 3-year-olds do this, and the environment and the child just thrives more when it's got this element of the imagination and the fact that it can, you know, be changed every day. Like maybe today we need to build like a hut, and then this time next week we're going to make a road. Like I've seen kids, a group of 3-year-olds, just get a heap of sticks and they raked and they created this like circle out of logs around a tree, and they just used to run around it then. But it was the fact that they've got this, I think they use it more when they have a connection to it, because hey, I built this. So a lot of like what do we call it, like loose parts kind of things is handy for them to create those spaces themselves. I hope that answers that.
Sweet. Any other questions? Feel free to write them in the comments, or if you want to unmute yourself and jump in. Like while we wait, like I think like it is one of the biggest things. Like it can be overwhelming for people to figure out like, right, where do we start? But like it's looking at like what's the simple things you can start changing. Like you don't have to go to like mad extremes of everything that we talked about. If you can just change one thing, what's that one thing that you could change? And it could be the matter of like creating a space where you can sit on the floor more so it could be like moving a few things around, maybe getting rid of like the second sofa so you only have one in the house, like whatever that might be, and seeing how that starts evolving. And then in a month's time or a couple of months' time, it's like, right, what else can you start adding in? Like, and just slowly start piecing away. It's like when I look at how we live now, that is something that like I didn't like sit down and plan and orchestrate this out. I allowed it to kind of happen naturally with that. Whereas like it's a lot more like it can feel overwhelming when you try to come from here to there straight off the bat. So it's allow yourself to like pick one thing that you want to have that change with, and then see how that has an effect, and just slowly start building with that. But also for like it's like connecting with yourself, asking yourself like, what am I doing to nourish my body?
Yeah, definitely. And that's probably, after talking to you last time, that's where I started, because I sort of left our conversation with, there's so many ideas, and I started with observation because that's something that comes naturally to me anyway. So it was just like, okay, well, I'll just observe what's actually already going on, because I never feel like I can start to progress, like move on, unless I know actually what's happening in that moment. So a lot of that was just that observation, and that's why I started to see the boys doing different things that I hadn't really noticed. Like I'd noticed, but I hadn't thought of it with awareness. And that has slowly allowed different things to kind of check in as well. But then, just noticing myself, like how am I sitting, or where am I working, or if I'm reading, like what am I doing at the same time to kind of like nourish that movement.
Awesome. Like awareness is key. Like it's just by zoning out and just kind of checking in and seeing what is happening around, like it just tells us so much. Like and like when I'm working with people, like it's always focusing on like opening up your awareness, and like once you become aware of everything that's happening through there, then you can ask yourselves the questions. It's like, right, what do I want to change that's going to bring more joy or bring more ease? And then from there, once you know, like following what that gut instinct of like that one or two simple things that you can do, and then just acting on that, rather than getting caught up in that whole big picture and of just getting overwhelmed. It's just focusing like what's the one or two little things that I can start doing that's going to start creating this little change, and how that ripple effect has rolls out, and just keep coming back to that rather than caught up in the big overwhelm, because it is like, if depends where you're coming from, it can be overwhelming, and that's just going to cause more stress next in the situation, and that's working against what we actually want to do. And I guess again, by like you saying, modeling listening to yourself as well, listening to your own intuition, and allowing that space and trust for that as well. There's a lot of power in doing that. And I know for my boys, one thing that's been interesting for them, because they're old enough to really think about this as like a change, like a change process as well. One inspiring thing for them was that they do love playing sport, but we read or heard that natural movement will make you a better sportsman, but being a good sportsman doesn't make you a good natural mover, which I thought, that's really fascinating. So that for them was a huge thing to like, if I move my body in this way and do all of these things, I'll actually connect to these other skills I do want to like kind of refine as well. And even in a healthier way without getting the injury or all of that sort of stuff. And like you can see that happening so many places now. Like there's a whole like development of like movement called like MoveNat, which basically is like a natural movement training philosophy and stuff. But there's so many sports people and like MMA fighters, all of these like professional athletes have actually gone back and started doing a lot more of that natural movement, and like how that has affected with everything as well. It's like the famous ones, like everyone knows, like in the movement world, like Ido Portal, who is like the guru of movement, and Conor McGregor started working with Ido Portal through all of this explorative movement and tapping into his body, and how that excelled him in his fighting career stuff as well. Like, and it's like coming back to the basics, get the foundations right in our bodies is going to help everything else explore a lot more with that.
Which again, same theory for learning and education. Like instead of kind of steamrolling ahead, we need to get the foundations.
Slow down, set your foundations, and then where to move from there. Awesome. So seems like there's no more questions with that. Amy, did you want to ask something?
I was just going to, sorry guys, I've absolutely loved this conversation. It's made me think a lot about a lot of things, but one of the things I live with is basically guilt of the fact that I don't officially exercise. I've been meaning to start exercising, it's always a thing that'll happen when I have the time, but it kind of makes me feel like maybe I could drop that guilt and just really start just becoming aware and doing little things and around the house that, you know, means I don't have to go get to that class, you know. And then I guess my follow-up question would just be, but if I was going to get to that class, what are those things that more promote this versus like, so yeah, like going to a gym class and lifting weights, is that not the place to be, but going to a yoga class is? And is there a bit of a delineation in like the modalities that are currently available and how they can, like, which ones really help with the natural movement side of things and which ones are probably, you know, best to stay away from?
Awesome, like wicked question. So the first one with like that guilt of not moving, like that mama guilt, whoa, it's a potent one.
Yeah.
But like even just going from experience and seeing Shona how she is, like before Bonnie was born, like she was training like ridiculously. Like it was so much. She trained like the whole way up until like she was like 38 weeks or 36 weeks with Bonnie. Like she was doing a lot of classes and movement and stuff like that with myself. But like through the later stages of her pregnancy, she was getting some back pain, some sciatica, and all of that stuff. And then since she's had Bonnie, she hasn't done any training as such, but we've been living in this way since all of that. And like whenever she was pregnant with Bree, it's like because we were living on the floor, having everything on the floor, doing all of this sort of stuff. Like she had no back pain, like no hip pains, no nothing the whole time. Like if anyone knows her birth story, like it went on for like her labor went on for like 4 or 5 days, and like so like she was just spending hours and hours sitting in the squat, sitting in all of these different positions because her body had already been doing all of this stuff and she had working through that. So like it's because like she wasn't training as such, but she was constantly doing all of this stuff. It helped her body so much. Like she hasn't had any back pain in years because of all of this stuff. So like for yourself or for anyone else that's listening to it, is just by starting to change up your environment and integrate some of these more simple things into what you already do, that's already going to be nourishing your body so much more. And then going into that second question is the biggest thing that I always say to people is like finding what movement lights you up. So like I don't really care what sort of training it is, but finding something that lights you up, that you really get joy out of doing, and start doing some of that and just start building from there. Like there's no point, it's like, oh, I need to get flexible, so go to yoga, but I hate going to yoga. And like you just like building yourself up, setting yourself up for failure with that. So it's finding something that you really enjoy doing and just see how you can start creating more space to allow that to happen with it. And start kind of just to get the ball rolling. And once you get the ball rolling and get more confident with that, then again, as you're being more inquisitive with your body, as you're starting to be more aware of all of this stuff, you're going to be starting to be drawn towards more of the things that your body wants and that you want to nourish yourself with that. Does that make sense?
Yeah, completely. I guess it was, you know, like people just go to the gym and work out, and it's like, well, you know, is it more like body weight exercises are obviously going to be better for this natural movement philosophy compared to weights? Or like, is there maybe anything that we shouldn't necessarily be doing? Because as you say, like even like, you know, going for a run, I think about how our ancestors would have only run, you know, due to, you know, trying to get away from something as opposed to running for exercise. And it's like, and it puts your body in that fight or flight because, you know, biologically we haven't changed over all these years. So I always just try to think back to like, is there anything that we're kind of doing in this modern day of exercise that's actually moving ourselves away from this real natural movement philosophy? And it's always just makes me curious.
Yeah, like with that sort of stuff, like that's what drove my focus and my passion around the movement side of things so much in the last few years, massively, because I always focus on like creating solid foundations in your movement before you start trying to progress too much. Like whereas like with myself, like I used to try to squat with 100 kgs on my back when I had a shitty squat pattern, and that was not serving my body. But once I flipped that and once I started learning how to move my body through a good way and setting that a foundation, how I moved, all of that other stuff becomes so much more naturally with it. So for yourself, for anyone who hasn't done much movement, it's like going back and finding things to like reset your foundations and start building from there. And I guess one of the things that I've created recently with it is like I've got like an online movement membership that basically goes through all of these aspects of it, where like there's like it's like a private hub where like there's follow along classes in different aspects of mobility, body weight strength training. Like there's like a class all on like the kind of primal movements, so all of the crawling patterns and all of that sort of stuff, as well as learning how to do different aspects of breath work. And like the premises of that membership is to reconnect with your body and reset your foundations, so then you are more comfortable to do this elsewhere. And the beauty of it being an online program, you can do it from the comfort of your own home with your kids. Let's see your kids watch you do this stuff, getting them to join in if they want, stuff like that as well. Like, and I find something like that like is a really good starting point if you want to learn more about that sort of things.
Yeah, that's what my husband's done, and I think that's been, you know, it's impacted probably all areas of his life, and then that trickles to the rest of us, obviously. And you know, he's been someone who's pretty sporty, I guess. Like he's always played sport his whole life, and I think been considered good at it. And he's pretty fit. Like he maintains like a reasonable fitness level. But some of the things he's learned with Finn, like have really, it's been like a lifestyle change. And so I think that for me has been that significant kind of like, oh, this is more than just going to a class. This is like activating, so I do it all day long. And I think you mentioned our ancestors, Amy, you know, even not going that far back, I think about the strength and the fitness of my 92-year-old grandma, who's probably, it's only started to like wane in the last couple of years, but she's had a life of constant varied movement, you know, like sweeping floors, doing all of these things, hands and knees, all of this stuff. It's like, it's about getting back to that space where it's our lifestyle rather than something we go and tick a box off. I think that's
and like I think, and again, that's one of the things is like with movement, it should be, so with movement and exercise, it should be something that's nourishing for our bodies. If like we already live in a high stress world, a lot of us are in high stress environments, maybe be it through work, family, all of these different things. And then so many people go as like, oh, I need to exercise, so I'm going to go to this like 45-minute class, which is going to smash myself for 45 minutes and nearly getting sick. Like just pushing yourself, you're putting more stress on your body. But with that, like you're pushing at that high intensity, which you're not allowing yourself to focus on the quality of your movements. So again, it's like putting stress on your body through your nervous system, but also you're not allowing yourself to focus on the quality of movement. So you open up the chance of hurting yourself and injuring yourself because you're not moving slow and nourishing your body through that way. So by slowing things down and learning how to open things up a lot more and be more nourishing and respectful with your body, you're going to create more of a change with it. And then as Jill said, it's like bringing that new awareness of what you're learning with this movement into what you do day to day. Like that's where you're going to have so much more of an effect with it. And it's going for like, you're looking for the longevity of it rather than that quick fix.
Yeah, and I think even that, and I know this because I've done it, that guilt feeling, Amy, of like I should be doing this or I should be doing that. Like I know that like I will follow that for a while, but then it falls away. And you know, even I guess that's like about intention, isn't it? So it's like it becomes a lot easier if it's just flowing throughout your actual everyday life, because you don't have to kind of like separate from the family to do it. And you know, even sometimes mothers and fathers, I guess, finding time to separate yourself from the house to go to a yoga. I mean, I used to do it, you know, 5 a.m. yoga classes 4 days a week, and then go to work and be absolutely exhausted by 3 o'clock. And it wasn't sustainable either. And it did seem to come from a bit of that punishment space.
I need to do this.
I need to do this, or I'm not going to be fit, and then I'm not going to be this, and I'm not going to be this, and my yoga practice will fall away. And so I think coming and watching your children as well, like maybe that's like a really key point for people if they are parents or they work with children, is just looking at, well, what is my child doing, and kind of learning from them as well.
And like even to go into that a bit more is like, I know from my own experience with it, like I come from like with my training, like I've went through periods of being like really regimented with training, like 2 hours a day, 5-6 days a week, to like barely being able to fit any training and like anywhere in between all of that. And like where I've been over the last couple of months, like since working from home, with everything that's happened, is like I'm not getting to my focus training as much as what I would like. But rather than beating myself up for that, as like some days like, oh, I didn't get to train today, but then look back in the day, it's like, oh, but like I spent like half an hour crawling around and rolling around with the girls. It's like, oh, like it was hanging from the rings outside when the girls were playing in the front. Oh, I was doing this and that. Like, and when you actually look and build it up, it's like actually it did like moved a lot today, but it wasn't in that structured element with that as well.
That's really interesting. That's something I have to tell people if they're worried about homeschooling. Like, I haven't done enough with my child today, because I think that sometimes then at the end of the day, write down everything you've done, and you've actually done so much, but it maybe didn't appear in these little structured blocks. So
but like going back to like kind of bring that back around to that question, it's like looking at what you need in your body, finding that something that brings that joy for yourself with it, that's going to nourish your body and set them foundations and stuff. Like if you want any more information and stuff like that on the Wholesome Mover, like feel free to reach out and stuff as well. Like I will share a little bit about that in the event and stuff like that, because I think like again, my biggest philosophy around everything that we'll be talking about today is it starts with self. It starts with the adults learning how to embody all of these things for themselves, so then they can create that environment and that space for the kids around them to learn as well. So by learning how to integrate this within ourselves, that's going to have that roll-on effect. So like with something like the Wholesome Mover, like it could be a really nice starting point for people to start. It's like, all right, here's something where I can start getting a bit more confidence in this, to start seeing how that listens out and rolls out.
And do you do that? You said before, like you've done it family classes.
I've done a couple of like family workshops and stuff. Like like I have a series of workshops like the Cold Connection, which is like movement, breath work and ice. But I have a Family Connection, which was like going out for like a nature exploration and stuff, and bringing different aspects of play and stuff. So I've done a little bit of that last year, but still like I haven't anything planned for this year with any of that stuff, because I'm focusing more on like a bit more of the online stuff and like the one-on-one coaching and like the movement mentorship and stuff. So there's lots of things spinning, so I'm always very mindful of like not spreading my energy too thin
and sticking to what is your zone. I think that's been a big learning curve for me as well. Does that help, Amy? She's still there.
But again, like I think as a roll on with this, like it's like the whole idea of this conversation was to get people to start looking big picture, asking the questions of themselves, what they can do for themselves, what they can do for their environment with their family, or if they're teachers in this classrooms and stuff like that. And like we're open to have communication with anyone who feels that this really resonated and want to learn more. Like I think the whole thing is like it's something like both of us are so passionate about. So I was looking, I was like, if there is anything that can come from this, like we're definitely open to kind of chat into more of that ourselves, and with anyone who feels something could, because I think it is like it's something that's so needed. So definitely like feel free to like share this with anyone that you feel like really resonated with. If you have questions, or if you have feedback or any suggestions, or looking for more assistance and stuff like that, definitely reach out as well. Like you know, like Jill, like you do some like coaching with like parents and stuff like that, in more of that natural learning environment.
That's I guess doing similar to what you do, but then just it always comes back to the self. So ending up working with the parent to kind of like go, well, how do I reconnect to those things myself? Because we kind of, I mean, it's great that the kids are maybe our motivation to like come back to these points. But then once you start looking into them, it always comes back to, well, how do I not change myself, how do I nourish myself so that I can be like this for my child? So it's similar. And I think rediscovering your own capacity for learning as well is fascinating. So learning and movement, and just the fact that they're so deeply connected.
For sure. So awesome.
You can reach out and So I think as well, getting this message, if you do know any teachers that maybe didn't know about this today, or educators, and sharing that with them, and just getting that conversation going as well. Just to look at, things like, the question about organizing outdoor play, like really simple, practical ideas as well. Like I think we're both happy to be contacted and asked about those things as well. And I'd love to hear what you do actually with your play space, because I think sharing the ideas as well is you know, we don't have all the ideas, right?
Yeah.
Ideas come from community and collaboration.
Yeah,
So
for
yeah,
sure.
let us know how you go with that.
Yeah. And like, yeah, like I think that rolls into everything is like the more we can just keep this idea sparked, more people kind of sharing and talking into it, like it's creating more of that collective change for everyone.
Yeah.
And I think that's the big intention for this.
It
Like
is,
this conversation is just to spark that flame.
Yeah, it's definitely that, isn't it? Just, and so, you know, it's not just my kids have been nourished, your kids, like it's like if we care about where the world's going and all of these things, I think we have to start looking bigger picture, and ironically that starts with ourselves. Yeah.
Awesome. So again, massive thank you for everyone who is tuning in live. We will have this uploaded on YouTube and send out the link and stuff like that as well. If you want to reach out and connect with myself or Gill, you can find me on Facebook, McKenna-Fox, or on Instagram, complete_body_approach. And Gill?
Yeah, both Facebook and Instagram is Born Wise Learning. So yeah, reach out via this event thread as well if you want to.
Yeah, awesome. Have a beautiful day. I'm looking forward to hearing from you all.
Thank you.